Welcome to week 4. For this week, we'll be talking about nutrition and the human body. For this particular topic, I've decided to split up our talk into 4 smaller PowerPoints so that you can review as needed throughout these. For today, we'll be starting off with the basics of nutrition. So in our world right now, we have ample amounts of dietary advice, but the big question is, how do we go and split good advice from bad advice? Before we get going on that and how we'll approach that particular question, we need to define a couple basic terms. First of all, hunger is a physical impulse and need that we have to go and seek out food. It's what helps keep us alive. Inside of our food, we have a series of nutrient groups that we go and study as an area of science, and how these nutrients are going to affect the human body, and particularly in relation to how they cause disease. So of these groups, we have 2 very large groups that we go and split all our 7 nutrient areas into. So our macro groups, the ones that we eat in large amounts, are carbs, fats, and proteins. Micro groups that we eat in small amounts are our vitamins and minerals that we have in our food. On top of this, we have a separate group for water itself, purely because it's so important. And then finally, not on here, but it can be argued that the 7th group that we should include here is fiber, because of its ability to help prevent disease. Before we talk about any of these groups, we need to talk about what actually defines a food, and this will become very important when we talk about weight. So a calorie is the way that we measure the amount of fuel that is within any food that we eat. We define this in 2 separate ways. In science, we define a calorie as the amount of heat needed to go and heat up 1 milliliter of water by 1 degrees Celsius. In food, however, because it has so many of these, we go and define it in a kilo amount, or 1,000, which is the big C that we see on any food packaging items. For this, we can go and define how much every gram of our macro group has in terms of its fuel amount. So fats have 9 kcals per gram, and carbs and proteins only have 4. For the rest of this talk, I want to address our first and major group, which is water. Water, as we all know, is a critical nutrient group for us. We can't exist without it. In terms of how we store fuel, we store plenty of kcals in our body in the form of fat. 1 pound of fat stores about 3,500 kcals of fuel, which means that even the skinniest people, for example, I used here 150-pound cyclists, so think Lance Armstrong when he was racing in the Tour, at 3% body fat, means that they have roughly 6 and change days worth of fuel stored up if they eat absolutely nothing. More likely they actually have closer to about 9 because of changes that occur in the body. So while we store plenty of fuel, we don't store very much water. Even though about half of our body weight is water, we are so reliant on this for things such as pH balance to actually produce fuel at all, to go and transport things like O2 and carbohydrates and fats throughout our body, that we need to drink water pretty consistently. In fact, we can only survive about 2 to 3 days without any water consumption. For most average people, you'll need to drink about 3 liters of water per day. However, if you happen to live in a place where it's hot or dry, or you work out a lot, or you happen to have a certain disease, especially involving the kidneys, you will probably need to drink upwards of 1 gallon per day because of the amount of water loss that you'll have each day. Of this amount, we actually go and take in quite a bit more than this. About 20% of our total water intake we get through food. The rest we need to drink. So that's that 3 liters of water per day. On this note, in terms of what we drink, I like to address 2 general ideas here. That both caffeine and alcohol both cause us to become dehydrated faster. In both of these cases, it happens to not be true. For a caffeine user, if you drink a moderate amount, so a couple of cups of coffee per day, and you do this regularly, it doesn't change the amount that we excrete in terms of the water loss. For alcohol, we see a big change occur, and we've probably all noticed this or seen this happen. When we drink a lot, we tend to go and use the bathroom a lot. Well, this is actually due to the volume of liquid that we're drinking, not completely due to the drink itself. So it is important that we drink quite a bit of water. Just to address this point as well, it is possible to drink too much water, but this is a very rare occurrence and it's very, very hard to accomplish. Most people who actually do this do so by drinking literally several gallons of water in a very short amount of time. So you have to try to cause yourself harm by going and drinking too much water. On this note, I would challenge all of you by the time we hit next week to do a little experiment here. First of all, for a day or two, track how much fluids you actually drink. My guess would be most of you are a fair amount short of that 3 liter mark because the average American is quite a bit dehydrated every day. Next, my challenge would be find a bottle that you know the volume of and keep it with you throughout the day. Try and consume 2 to 3 liters of water every single day. On this, you need to go and spread it out throughout the day. Don't just go and chug it every 4 hours or so. My guess would be for the first week or two, you'll be in the bathroom a fair amount, but you'll probably be pretty shocked about how good you feel when you start to actually consume the recommended amount of water and your body adjusts to that amount. And you're no longer constantly low on this very important area of our health. Next up, we'll talk about the macro groups, fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So I'll let you flip over to that particular YouTube talk and I'll see you there.